Welcome everybody to a very special edition of Blizz Pro TV. We have yet another awesome interview in store for all of you. So what I'd like to do is take just a quick second and introduce the people that you are going to be hearing from tonight, okay? First off, I am your host, Twizz. It's very good to see you guys again, and thank you very much for tuning into this episode. My co-host this evening is also part of the Blizz Pro staff. This man somehow eats, drinks, sleeps, and breathes Warcraft. I would like to welcome onto the show for the very first time, Mr. Crow. Hello, sir.
Hi there. How are you?
It's good. It's good to have you on here, man. Very good. So
I'm so excited and also exceptionally nervous, but still okay.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Dude, what could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong, right? So, now I'd like to take a moment to just introduce our guest. First and foremost, he has been on the show several times, to the point that I'm actually considering calling him a permanent co-host, but we can discuss that a little bit later. Please help me welcome back to the show the very awesome and creative Mr. Micky Neilson. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
We are good. Very good, man. It's so great to have you on here. And usually we have you in a Diablo overlay, but this is kind of a nice change. So... looking forward
awesome. Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Good times ahead. So, lastly, and certainly not least, if you have dove into books such as Rise of the Horde, Arthas, The Shattering, Thrall, or Tides of War, you've made a direct link with our final guest, Miss Christie Golden. Welcome to the show, dear.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, it is beyond our pleasure. Beyond our pleasure. So, it is absolutely incredible to have a lineup like this, so I can't wait to dive into it. We are certainly going to be covering the newly released book entitled War Crimes in a very spoiler-free way, but I'd like to address each of you and talk a little bit about how it is that you do your job so well. Now, first, Micky, we've had you on the show, as I stated earlier, but usually your picture's surrounded by Tyrael or another Diablo theme. So what role did you play in War Crimes?
So, for War Crimes, I guess originator in a way. So what that means is I met with Chris Metzen, I think it was Dave Kosak at the time, and we sat down and started figuring out, okay, we knew that we wanted to do a bridge novel leading up to the next expansion, and kind of filling people in on what was happening in between. So we started talking about that, and then I did like a bare bones outline for the book and sent that off to Christie, and then from there it was really just communication and what we call story development here, where we have people who work on books and things like that, and just kind of maintain cohesion and everything with all the people involved as far as the stories go.
Awesome. Very, very good. Very good. Christie, a lot of authors have worked in Azeroth, but none more than you. Check me. I counted. Trust me on that one. Do you feel like you have got a lot of agency in that creation, or is it more along the lines of Micky and Metzen have a mission, here are the objectives, and go?
You know, from the very beginning, before there was even a World of Warcraft, and I started working on Lord of the Clans, Blizzard has always been very, very welcoming and inclusive of me and my contributions. Sometimes they know exactly what they want and all the points they want to hit in order for it to work best as a tie-in for the game. Other times they have an idea, and I get to fly out and sit down and jam with them, and that is just such a truly amazing and collaborative experience. I'm one of those authors that, as they say, plays well with others, so I don't get too bristly or proprietary over anything that I do when it's a media tie-in. And over the years, CDev has come to, I believe, respect and value my input, and I, obviously want to write the best book for them so that they're happy. But it really has been an almost magical combination of timing and people and projects. It's really been quite wonderful.
That is phenomenal. That's awesome. Now, do you dread that phone call, or like when you're talking about, they give you a call and you got to fly out and brainstorm and everything, like what goes through your head when that happens?
It's like a party. And I'm serious. It's like one of the highlights of my year when I get to go out.
That's
It's just so great. I've made so many friends there, and you walk into that place and the energy's high and everybody's happy to work there, and it's just incredible. Down the hall, there's a big statue of Thrall. I mean, it's just a wonderful environment. And it's really the only time in my life when I've been able to sit down in a meeting for, sometimes, Mickey? Sometimes up to like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then leave going, man, I can't wait to get to work. You just get, the energy is so high and everybody's so, at least they seem so to me, they seem very excited about what I plan to do with it. Sure. And it really is just such a positive, exciting, fun thing to do.
That's awesome. And you know what? Like, I can't help but I don't know. I feel what you're saying. Like when you look at that big statue of Thrall that's down the hallway that you were just talking about, it's like how satisfying of a feeling knowing that like you had a huge part in that. You know what I mean? In everything that character represents and everything that just it all encompasses. That's got to be so satisfying.
Yeah. When I first saw the cinematic for Warcraft 3. There's a scene where Thrall wakes up after the nightmare and he's blinking and he's got those blue eyes. And the first time I saw that, I'm not kidding you guys, I got a lump in my throat and I said, that's my boy.
Grows up so quick.
Oh, they do.
That's hilarious. Too awesome. Crow, you have some questions, sir?
Oh yeah, I do. Okay. So in War Crimes, you got to be in touch with a lot of the characters that you worked with previously. You worked with Bane, worked with Anduin Wrynn, obviously with Jaina Proudmoore, who I'm fairly certain you're the president of her fan club. But you also worked with a bunch of characters that you hadn't worked with before, like Sylvanas and Barisa Windrunner. Are there any characters you haven't worked with before that intrigue you, that you're like, oh, I could have a story for that guy, maybe, sometime in the future?
It's interesting because I have gotten to work with almost all of the big names. I'd actually worked with Sylvanas before on Arthas, and I got to have her death scene, which was pretty cool.
Awesome.
I really hadn't worked much with Vol'jin, so that was nice. That was really nice to get to work with him a bit and get into his head a little bit. I've not done anything with the Worgen. And I've not really done anything much with Blood Elves, and I think that would be interesting to work with those two races.
Which is funny that you mention that, because the guy who writes everything about Worgen and Blood Elves is Micky Neilson. So,
well, so we got it covered.
That's right. Between the two of us, I mean, we're really not missing much.
That's hilarious. Okay, you beat me to the punch on that one. I was like, hey, you know what? I know a guy that can do that. So, oh, how funny. So. I guess the one of the Blizz Pro questions, we felt the staff and kind of pulled some questions from here and there, and this segues right into it. Do you feel like you have an entire Sylvanas book in you?
Oh man. Well, she's certainly worthy of a whole book. I mean, she's a very rich and complex character with a very deep backstory. Oh, sure.
Awesome. That's cool.
I'd love to. I'd love to. I've really enjoyed working with her. And I think she just hadn't been, we try to bring the characters that are appropriate for each book. We don't try to say, oh, well, such and such is a popular character. Let's make up a scene so that the fans can see that character. Right. We do what's best for the story, what's best for the book, and there just really hasn't been that much of an opportunity to work with Sylvanas, but I would certainly enjoy working with her again.
Cool. Okay, I had to ask it. So. All right, anyways, back to War Crimes.
So, well, actually, maybe not exactly quite back to War Crimes yet.
Okay.
As a bit of follow-on to that, you mentioned earlier about not being super proprietary about your work. But in looking at the characters that you worked with, in the books you've done, your perspective characters are almost always characters that have previously been established in the game at one point or another, in one game or another. Do you prefer to stick with established characters instead of putting your own creations into the story as leads?
I'm happy doing both. I can certainly do both. I've written several original novels, And so I'm fine with my own characters. But I don't know that that's what people want to see in Warcraft. I mean, we get to play and we get to interact with these things. We get to run our lower characters up, and I remember galloping up to meet Thrall and, have you come to serve the Horde? No, it's Thrall. And look, here's my picture next to the Dark Lady. Screenshot it. And so I think the reason that people buy these books is they're already adventuring in Warcraft as player characters. They're already adventuring, and some of them are already writing their own stories about their characters. And I think people look to the books to find stories about these people that they already know. I think you can certainly have another character and introduce them. I mean, Kindy turned out to be very popular.
Oh yeah.
Kindy. And Kindy! Remember Theramore?
Seriously.
Yeah, someone was joking about getting a t-shirt made up.
I am pulling that sound clip out.
Remember Theramore? We will never forget.
So awesome.
So I can certainly do it if that is, but generally that's not what's come down the pike for me. That's not really been, the marching orders that I've been given. Most of the stories are built around already existing characters.
All right. Awesome.
Got one for Mickey here. Is there any kind of pressure to focus on using established characters rather than using originals like Ronan or Kalagos?
It really depends on the project. So with something like a bridge novel, by virtue of the fact that it is bridging, expansions, you've typically got major characters who are the big marquee players in those expansions, whether it's with both of them or whether it's a character that's going to be introduced in or revisited in the new expansion. I mean, there's always those things that you have to take into account, and so the story that's kind of letting you know what's happening in between, you definitely want to feature those characters that are going to be important to that story. But we do sometimes, and not as much in novels. It's been a little bit more in comic books, where, for folks who are familiar with Dark Riders or Bloodsworn, we created entirely new characters for those. And the whole idea was we wanted it to feel more like characters that you actually play in the game, and rather than the non-player characters. So it just depends. But those are things that we talk about. Like, do we want to introduce new characters? And we've got so many characters right now. Really what we're talking about is we have to start killing off as many as we can because there's so many.
This is gonna go Game of Thrones, isn't it? I know it.
There are way too many characters for us to even pay enough attention to.
Wow.
That's really funny. We just published an article today. Zen Style just published an article talking about five WoW characters that need a mercy killing. You're going a little extreme here, but I can kind of see what you're talking about. So yeah.
And we do every once in a while. We do kill some off, and it's just
the circle of life.
It makes it so that we can focus on other ones.
Exactly. Out with the old, in with the new.
The game is Warcraft, and people die in war. It is
a weird thing, isn't it? How that works out. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. So meanwhile, back in War Crimes, Christie, did you have to do a lot of research with courtroom dramas in order to get a feel for how that was going to play out in the course of the, I almost said the game, in the course of the book, since that's really the primary action of what was going on?
That was something that we all talked about, and I did do some research, but also we were creating a new culture, a culture's legal system, not U.S. or British or Canadian or, whatever that's been established. So we did have the flexibility for me to kind of pick what I thought would be comfortable tropes, and proceed in a logical manner. Basically, what I did was just kind of look at it and think about what scenes could be shown, to be most effective. And then, there's one time where Tyrande shows something and she pauses at this moment and it looks really, really horrible. And then all Bane does is come back in and let the scene finish out, and the whole thing shifts.
Wow.
So just trying to be smart that way and think about, well, if I were the defender and the accuser, what would I do? We also, at Blizzard, felt very strongly, they told me to change terminology such and not have "I object," because that was just so American television, right?
Yep,
we're all always "I object."
So Perry Mason, right?
Yeah. So, although there were some illustrations running around of Bane in a power suit, which is pretty funny. But we didn't want to have too much of that. We wanted it to be familiar so that people could relax and kind of go along with it,
Right.
but not so stereotypically American legal system.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, with a lot of the people that really get into the nitty gritty of the story, there's always a lot of argument about how, in a real world context, this term doesn't mean this particular thing. And I'm like, we're not in the real world, guys. We're in Azeroth, and we don't know the exact rules. So
exactly.
It's
so
really interesting going into this and seeing how these rules were created.
Yeah, it was interesting, and to decide what we wanted to keep and what we didn't, and it just gave us a lot more flexibility that way to tell the story. In the end, this isn't trying to be as close to what you'll see in a courtroom as it is to tell a story.
Sure. No, absolutely. That is so key. You just said it perfectly. One of the things that I love the most about War Crimes is how much it feels like it's just one part of a much larger narrative. You can trace lines in the book that go all the way back to Lord of the Clans, and it really gives the whole Warcraft story a sense of cohesion. Is that cohesion hard to achieve when you've got other novelists, comic writers, short story writers, and game designers all working on the same source material?
It can be. This is such a big world, but Blizzard is, I think, head and shoulders above a lot of other IPs in that they recognize that, and they actually have people whose sole job it is to be bugged by people like me. And I have an advantage going in because I've actually played the game for many, many years.
Right.
And so I have absorbed a lot of knowledge that way. But Sean Copeland, to whom the book is dedicated, did an amazing job because, as you say, there were so many things and so many small details upon which large things hinged. And there were times when I'd be like sending out, and I'm not exaggerating, a dozen questions a day.
Wow.
And to the tiniest thing, and he would just come right back and he'd get on that, and if he didn't know the answer, he'd go find out the answer. And so, we're all working together because we know that the players, the fans, really know this game inside and out, and they've read so much of the stuff. And there's always going to be something that you don't catch, or somebody brings to your attention, and you go, oh, no.
Missed
but we
that.
try really hard to make them few and far between.
Sure. Yeah, and that's got to be I don't know, so intense because like you just said, like if you say one thing, like you have to almost analyze every sentence because how many people are going to be looking at it, and one little loophole or one little thing, and that's all you're going to hear about, or at least I would feel like that way anyways. I don't know. Just being.
Well, even with me on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people will ask me questions, and half the time I'll say, I'm going to add Sean Copeland to this, and I'm going to let him answer that just in case.
Right. That's hilarious. Yeah. Oh, dude, yeah. Cover your butt. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. I try to help him out on occasion because because there's so many people asking him so many questions.
Sure.
So I'll occasionally try to field some of those that you send over to him too. With the knowledge, of course, I do not work for Blizzard. I work for Blizz Pro.
Right.
But I do what I can. So because since I have more knowledge about this game than I really should. My wife doesn't even play this game, and she knows more about this game than I.
That's awesome.
It's hilarious, really. All right. Meanwhile, back in War Crimes, I have to stop using that joke. With how much or how little, because I don't want to spoil how much Garrosh is in the book or not in the book, with how much he's in the book, it really begins to feel like he's one of the most multi-dimensional characters in the whole franchise, especially for a character that was introduced in World of Warcraft and not in any of the previous games, in the RTS games. You see him in the Ulduar trailer in Wrath of the Lich King. He's a sadistic brute that just wants to brawl with Varian. You see him in Walt Simonson's comic, and he's a meathead who jumps to bad conclusions constantly. But once you see him in the books and the short stories, and you see his internal process, all these interactions, they start to make more sense. I have compared him in the past to Conan the Barbarian, in the sense that he's physically overpowering, but he's also highly intelligent and philosophical. So I guess my question is, was it deliberate to make a villain that was this kind of threat for both the Horde and the Alliance?
I think that goes all the way back for me to the Shattering and the whole killing of Cairn. And, what was his stand on that really? What did he want? Did he want Cairn dead, or did he want the honor of defeating Cairn, which are two different things? Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of email from people saying, I don't know how you did it, but you did the impossible. You made me actually respect and understand Garrosh. And I was like, my work here is done. So, yeah, all the way back, I think he's very, very complicated. And I think one of the things I really enjoy about this book was the Garrosh-Anduin dialogue.
Oh, yeah, that was the
And a lot of people have compared it to Silence of the Lambs. But I think it's more of a two-way street. It's not just Garrosh trying to unnerve Anduin. And the question I would love for people to bear in mind as they read those scenes is, who asked to talk to whom?
Right. Mm-hmm. That's key. That's critical to understanding why those scenes are taking place. Right. Because you look at them, and again, without saying anything specific about what's going on, but you look at them and it's like, is Garrosh trying to manipulate Anduin, or did Garrosh specifically want a different perspective? Yep. And I think those were probably some of my favorite scenes throughout the book. I mean, there's a lot to really love in this book, but those were some of the ones that I really latched onto. So that was a good time. Now let's cross over into something else that you're expert in at this point. Meanwhile, in Star Wars,
we're going there.
Okay, a little bit of setup first. Arthas comes up a lot in your work in Warcraft. He's often used as a touchstone for Jaina to remember when she's being irrational. Famously, she comes up in War Crimes in one of those sequences where Garrosh and Anduin are talking. Garrosh is drawing comparisons between himself and Arthas and Anduin, which was... In terms of characters who end up having a really long and extensive impact on a universe long after they're dead and gone, do you think Arthas plays a role similar to what Darth Vader does in the Star Wars universe?
I've a lot of people brought that comparison.
Yeah.
I think the only deliberate comparison that I had when writing that was simply, why do good people do bad things? How is it that good people can go to such terrible depths, can fall so far? What makes somebody fall that far? And what is the makeup of somebody like that? So I think that's a classic theme to explore. Certainly in fantasy, I don't know that it's just because Vader is a similar type of character and his story is that same type of journey. It doesn't really mean that there's that much between the two of them.
True. All right, yeah. Cool. I think that's fair.
I think they're just the two most famous in pop culture for, our sort of people, our fan geeky people. That those two immediately come to mind, and therefore, you must have borrowed. And it's like, no, I went all the way back to classic, mythology, which is my touchstone for writing.
And all writers borrow from everything. There's really no way to avoid it, I think.
I believe there's a quote, good writers borrow, great writers steal.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, we'll change up gears a little bit, and I'm also very anxious to hear what Mickey thinks of this question as well. On my show in the past, we've spent a lot of time with voice actors. Okay, people like Matt Yang King, Gideon Emery, various others. Does the in-game voice work for the characters you write influence their dialogue when you write it?
You want to take that first, or shall I?
Oh, so for me, I will hear certain voice actors in my head when I'm writing dialogue for a character in a story. That's for me personally. And sometimes if it's a new character that doesn't have a voice actor in the game, sometimes I'll just create a voice actor or a famous, come up with a famous actor in my head and use that as kind of an example, that I'll go by. And I'll always, sometimes I'll definitely hear what they're saying in my head and picture the way they're saying it and everything else, and then I'll say the dialogue out loud myself, and so yeah, for me it does certainly have an effect.
Okay.
And for me, absolutely 100%. I'll tell you, the most fun I have ever had writing any book, the smoothest, most effortless, most heck of a ride was Devil's Due.
Okay.
Because all I needed to do was hear Tychus Finley's voice, and I had my dialogue. I didn't even have to think about it. I'd be like, well, what would Tychus say? Boom, And it was just so easy and so effortless. I think that is something that has enabled me to be as successful as a tie-in writer as I have been, because I do have an ear, and I can really hear and capture and create dialogue for a character that is quite in keeping with that character. Because if it doesn't matter how great your description is or how exciting your plot is, if Thrall doesn't sound like Thrall, your reader's gonna be unmoved by it. So you've really got to know the character bone deep and know exactly how they'd react and exactly what they'd say. And ideally, you don't even need to set it off by Anduin said or Karen said or Thrall said. Right. But you've got the voice so well that you can hear it in your head when you read it.
Absolutely. It reminds me of that meme where, or it's, I don't even know if it's a meme or whatever it is, but you can hear, like, it's an entire paragraph with a picture of Morgan Freeman. And you're reading that, and you hear his voice in your head. And then at the very end of it, it says, you totally heard my voice in your head the entire time, didn't you? Or something like that. and
it could be a grocery list, and it's just wonderful.
Oh my God, I'd love it. I would love it. That would be awesome. That would make grocery shopping so much better on me. I guarantee you that.
It really would, actually. To just follow up on that a little bit, it was so easy for me to hear, like, going off of that with your talk about voice work, it was so easy for me to hear Aaron Phillips delivering Rathion's lines. Like, for the lines that he has in the book, it's just like you hear him so much during Miss of Pandaria when you're playing through that you get to know his voice pretty well. Mm-hmm. But it was wonderful to really, hear the lines, that he has in the book, because it's like, no, this is exactly what he would say.
Thank you.
It was wonderful in that respect. He's a fun character no matter where you put him.
Oh, yes, he is.
Oh, man. Let's see. Oh, yeah. That's what I was going to ask. A bunch of people, especially a bunch of my colleagues on the BlizzPro staff, have been saying that they've been noticing across social media people saying that War Crimes surpasses Rise of the Lich King as the best WoW book ever written.
Oh, my.
What would you say to that? What do you think there might be any contributing factors to why people might be thinking that, why the book's been so well received so far?
Well, the first thing I would say is thank you. The second thing is that I think it really, people like it when they get to spend time with their favorite characters.
Sure.
Yeah. And these tunes have become friends of ours. And so I think the fact that most people are going to see somebody that they really love to spend time with in the book, and possibly even see something from their point of view, really means that everybody's going to come away with a little something that they feel good about. Also, it's revisiting so much of our history of Azeroth that I think that's a bit nostalgic as well. And so, also, as you said, we've got Wrathion, we've got some new characters introduced. I'm very fond of Kairos. He is the rascal, right? So scoundrel type, and he was fun to write too.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's some. I hate to say, well, there's something for everyone, but I did try really hard to make sure that, well, there was something for everyone.
I would just add to that. I think conceptually, it's such a unique project and such a unique story. There was nothing when we were talking about it, when we were sitting down and talking about the idea of what the book would be. There was nothing that we could really point at and say, like this.
Right.
Now, Game of Thrones. I was just watching the trial in Game of Thrones, and it's such a fantastic job. But otherwise, you don't look at fantasy and see something like a trial that's going on. That's a major event in the franchise.
Right.
So that was really a lot of fun, and in a lot of ways, I think this book is probably the most thought-provoking book that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just so much going on in there, and the messages that are being conveyed in the book, and just the idea that everybody else has to take a look at themselves because of what's going on at the trial.
Sure.
Right.
Not only taking a look at each other, and nobody's got anywhere to hide with the vision of time, and using that device, but but all of them being forced to air their dirty laundry, and that's just not you don't really see that very often.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, everybody got to make a journey. All the main point of view characters were not the same by the end of the trial as they were at the beginning of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I kind of almost wish I wish we weren't so close to the book having just been released, because we're trying to keep this spoiler free, but ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't picked up on the fact that this is intense and this is definitely a must read. If this conversation hasn't done it for you by now, I don't know what's going to do it. So
You're going to have feels by the end of it, folks. You're going to have feels.
all the feels. So, all right, we are on the home stretch here. I want to have just a little bit of fun. Okay, this is something that got thrown into the Blizz Pro staff questions, and I thought this would be good to do with you guys. I would like both of you guys to pick something out of the canon of Warcraft books, comics, everything that's not in any of the games. And what's the one moment out of any of the books that you'd want players to play in the game? I know. And the groans. I thought you said we were almost done and this was going to be easy, Twizz.
I'm drawing a terrible blank.
It's okay. You don't have to have it. This was just one of those things that's like, sometimes you get that answer that's like, oh, boom, no brainer. Hello, this, and sometimes, it's okay.
Well,
go ahead.
I kind of get some of that. Recently, there has been a fan out there who has been illustrating some of the scenes from War Crimes, the Wrathion Anduin scenes. Mm-hmm. And that just is the happiest thing in the whole wide world, to think that my art, my creativity, my work is inspiring somebody else to play along in a different way.
Absolutely.
With it. It's really cool. So I think that's kind of already been done in a way, and it was absolutely lovely to see.
Awesome.
So for me, in Blood of the Highborn, there's a point after the attack on Silvermoon has happened, and the Sunwell has been corrupted, and Kael'thas basically announces to everybody that they're going to have to go in and they're going to have to destroy the Sunwell, or it's going to kill all of them. and it was a fun scene to write because they go in there and they have their spell that they're doing on the Sunwell to destroy it, but there's also a whole slew of undead that they're dealing with.
Right.
Lady Leodrin is there, bunch of major characters there, and the trolls are attacking at the same time, and so it's just this huge battle that's going on. That would be a lot of fun. I would think that would be something that'd be a lot of fun to play in the game.
I'm glad you brought up Blood of the Highborn.
Cool. That was a fun one.
It was so much. It was a lot of fun to read because I know that you also wrote Unbroken, which was the short story about Nabundo that introduced how you get shamans on the Alliance back during Burning Crusade. And I recall you saying in the past that Blood of the Highborn sort of started as a companion piece to that to explain how Blood Knights got to be on the Horde, how Paladins got to be on the Horde, I should say. But obviously, it grew in the telling. Could you talk a little bit about how it grew into being, really such a much larger piece?
Well, that happened when I started describing the attack on Silvermoon.
Yeah.
And once you involve Arthas, Christie knows. when you start playing around with these characters, you have to give them their due, and you have to give them their moments, and you have to spend some time with them. Otherwise, you're just shortchanging the reader. I mean, you can't just skip over these marquee characters. And so when that entire and the more I got into describing the attack on Silvermoon, the more in depth it became, and it took a lot of pages to describe that. So that whole bit, the attack on Silvermoon alone, I forget how many pages it took, but it was a huge chunk of the story, and it was necessary, and it was a lot of fun because Christie, you covered a lot of that as well, and so being able to tell it from two different points of view was a lot of fun also.
Very
awesome.
I thought of something hearing you guys discuss. I think it would have been fun in game to go with Bane and retake Thunderbluff from Magatha.
Yeah,
that would be a blast to play out.
Yep.
It would have been a lot of fun. Hey, let's call up Dave Cossack and be like, "Hey guys, you want to do some scenarios?"
Caverns of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, I hate to jump in on the call because I know you're recording, but I've been trying to message you online to tell you we were running out of time.
Okay.
So
fine.
We can do one more question, but then I gotta let these guys go.
That is fine. No problems
Cool.
whatsoever. And ironically enough, and ladies and gentlemen, that is the Blizzard PR lady who is amazing. Lindsay, hello. I'm gonna keep
you won't keep my voice in, right?
I'm
You'll take me
totally
out.
gonna keep it in here. What happens on BlizzPro TV stays on BlizzPro TV.
No,
So,
I'm nice, I swear.
You're fine, dear. You are fine. No worries whatsoever. As luck would have it, we have just one more question anyhow. So very simple.
All right, pretty easy. I know we're running out of time, but could you give us one word that gives us a hint about what's coming up next from you, Christie, specific to World of Warcraft? Because you have teased in the past that you've got something else in Warcraft in mind, but you can't tell us what it is. But can you give us one word?
I'm not allowed to discuss my Blizzard projects. I'm sorry.
You can just say excited.
Well, I will say excited.
There you go.
I will say
Awesome.
familiar. There we go.
All right. Good answer.
So-
Good answer. Okay, sorry.
So I'll add something real quick. We are working on a short story that's going to take place right after the events of War Crimes, and it's going to go up for free on the website.
Awesome.
Everybody will be able to read it, and so if you read War Crimes, you read the short story, then you'll be fully informed when you play the game.
Excellent.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'll tell you what, Micky, Christie, you guys have been absolutely phenomenal to speak with this evening, and I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedules to come on the show and hang out with us.
It's
Oh,
been
you're
a
very
blast.
welcome.
Awesome. We'll have to get together again sometime very soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, yes, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, the book is called War Crimes. It was released on May 6th, so you should definitely be checking this out, as the community is already raving, as it's one of the best books to hit the shelves in the Warcraft series. So, on behalf of myself and BlizzPro and Blizzard Entertainment, we encourage all of you to game safe, live and love the story, and please, everyone within the sound of my voice, take care.